Okay, great. So once again, welcome everyone to our intended parent webinar, focusing on financial challenges. My name is Jeff Hu. I am the founder of SurrogateFirst, along with my wife, Lena. And I am really excited to present today on the findings that we have, because this is all based on the intended parents' actual results from our survey that we just conducted earlier this year. Usually when we talk, we will be speaking from our own background as professionals in the field of doing over 100 cycles and journeys a year, or we'll be speaking on behalf of the surrogates that we've surveyed. But today it's really, really special because we're able to speak and survey over 40 intended parents that have gone through their journey and over 160 participants that were either considering surrogacy or not considering surrogacy, just to get a broad range of information. So I just wanted to welcome all of you, let you know that all of the information will be posted online. And if you're here today, then I'll be sending out a follow-up email with all the links. So I'm going to be toggling between a few of the different surveys, just because there's such rich information, so that we can cover what we would like to see. So number one, just want to jump right into the financial challenges. We did the survey and there's a lot of information that I'm not going to share today, but I will in another webinar. But number one concern for all intended parents was the financial burden. Okay, the majority of intended parents considering surrogacy, 76% reported that the financial burden was the number one concern and hardship that they had. So that is really, really significant. And from that, we decided that we would present on the 3 findings that I think are most important, and then also, my comments about how we can challenge those and how we can support our intended parents. So the first one is, we realized that surrogacy is really self-funded. 87% of people are funding it themselves, paying all of it, in full. So that is one, and I'll dive into the details a little bit later. Second is intended parents are, their budget is a concern. Of course, the financial burden and stress, but in general, people are under budgeting. And I will share a little bit about what you should budget for and what is the trends of, expectation versus actual. And third point is that intended parents are very concerned with the compensation and why are they under budgeting and where are those increased costs coming from. And I'll go into a little bit detail about one of the main factors, not the only factor, but one of the main factors, which is on the compensation of the surrogates. And I'll dive really deep into letting you know exactly where are those numbers coming from and what to expect in the future. So I'm going to go to our next slide. Is basically where did I come up with the information about the number one concern being a financial burden. Here you can see that for both people who have gone through a journey or expecting to go through a journey, especially people who are expected to go through a journey, probably like yourselves, 88% of people stated that that was their concern or one of their concerns. A close number 2 was worried about someone else carrying your baby. Of course, the trust factor of finding a suitable surrogate is always top of mind, and we'll have another webinar about how to select and what our surrogate profile is like. But today is really to focus on that number one concern of everyone, which is the financial burden. So going to the specific details, you can see that there is a lot of people, over 80%, saying that they had moderate to severe financial burden. And this also is, a little bit more increase on people considering it as well. So we have a little bit of information there. For the real details of, in terms of people paying in full, there 87% of people who went through the surrogacy paid it in full. Okay, so if you think about, buying a house or making a very big investment up to 150, 200,000, you usually would be able to get a loan on that or find some other type of financing options. However, in surrogacy, there are a few options such as a Sunfish, and a couple other players in the market that are giving loans. However, the loan market, such as for cars or for houses, it is not mainstream. So you're not going to get a lot of options, and to qualify might be a little bit difficult. Maybe the rates are going to be a little bit higher. So that loan element for this big ticket item of surrogacy is not really available. Also, just a matter of fact is there are very, very few scholarships out there. You might think that, hey, there will be other foundations that want to help out, or infertility is a really, really big topic, and there would be more assistance. But we also find that from the government side and the state side, there just isn't a lot of assistance or scholarships out there. So you're not going to, if we see over here, that's actually 0. And people's expectation of people considering is about 8%, right? So I think that it is fair to say that you're not going to find a lot of support out there in terms of scholarship money. You're not going to find a lot of support out there in terms of getting loans, although 13% of people who went through surrogacy actually did finance through some personal loans. And people considering are expecting to have more and more loans. This one last topic I want to focus a little bit more about financing is actually the support that you might be getting from your employer, right? So there is a lot of tailwind. There is a lot of new kind of trend to give benefits for infertility as part of the medical insurance portion of people's benefits. So I'm going to skip to another part of our survey, which is really based on benefits and infertility benefits for employers and employees. But I just want to pull out this one slide just to let you know that on average, employers are providing about $11,000 worth of benefits to employees for infertility that are also related to IVF, maybe surrogacy, maybe adoption. So that number, 10,000, based on the total number, is still not very, very big. But I just want to let you know, you can ask your employers to see if they have any of these resources, etc. And in terms of people who are not considering to be intended parents, you can see that the average was only like 8,000, right? So the general population, the average is lower at 8,000. But the average you can see for everyone else, for the ones that went through, our intended parents that are expecting to go through surrogacy was 14,000. Sorry for that. But you can see that's still a really, really big gap between the total cost and what employers are willing to provide. I would say that it is encouraging, because I think 5 years ago, that number would be low, and 10 years ago would probably be almost 0. So the trend is a lot more bigger companies, I would say corporate, Fortune 100 companies. We've seen some companies, I don't want to name the names, that are covering 100% of surrogacy. There is, that's $150,000 to $200,000 of benefits that they are willing to provide to their high-level employees. So that is something I just want to share in terms of, the self-funding portion of surrogacy that is causing a huge burden on intended parents. The second area that I would like to focus on is talking about what that means to you as an employee and your retention. So I just wanted to point this out, is maybe it's something that you can talk to your corporate HR or your line manager or your CEO to say, like, hey, 61% of overall respondents, not only people doing surrogacy or IVF, were inclined to stay with a company that provided comprehensive infertility benefits. And another one is that 79% of people would consider switching jobs if they offered significant extensive coverage for infertility and surrogacy. Of course, this is for people that are considering to use surrogacy for the family building. So for people like yourself who are considering surrogacy, the benefits are really, really important. I would advocate for yourself, advocate for your fellow employees to your HR, to your directors to say, hey, there are big trends out there for benefits covering employees. What does ours look like, right? Is it 10,000? Is it 50,000? I would like to show you this survey. Maybe that would help change their mind a little bit in the long term. Moving along and back to our IP survey, I just wanted to go to the second point, which is basically talking about budgeting. So budgeting is really, really important. And I just want you guys to look at this chart. I will send it to you so you don't have to, add up the numbers to yourself. But if you look up here in terms of how much did you initially pay for your initially budget for your total surrogate journey, you can see that 73% of intended parents budgeted $150,000 or less. Only 27% budgeted for $150,000 or more. Okay, so the average of all of them was $132,000, and then that is compared to how much they actually paid, which I'm going to show on the other slide. But it's a good sign that people who are considering surrogacy are preparing a little bit more in terms of what they think surrogacy is going to cost. Of course, because of inflation and everything, I think it's fair to say that people are budgeting a little bit more. So 153,000, great. There are more people who are understanding that it will be 150,000, 250,000, 36%, and more than 200,000. So that is a good sign. But I just want to show you what is the actuality of it, is that on average, it actually costs 162,000. Okay, so that is basically a difference of 27% that people are under budgeting, and these are actual experiences from intended parents. And if you can see here, the actual number of people that were budgeting for 150,000 or below, 150,000 or below was only 27,000 versus the 60+%. So it was almost inverted, right? Of where people were initially budgeting to the actuality, which is the majority. The majority was between 150,000 and 200,000 at 40%, and over 200,000 was 20%. Okay, so that's 60% of people that were over 150,000 compared to only 27% that had initially budgeted for that range. Okay, so I think it's really important that what we look at is people will be planning ahead of time in terms of not only securing different ways of financing their surrogacy through, paying out of pocket directly 100%, or finding and securing loans, which are not plentiful, but there are options out there, and we can share those later on our follow-up newsletter and email. But also asking your employers for, looking for that budgeted area of if they can contribute to the benefit side. So really important point two, again, is try not to under budget, try to be realistic. I know we all try to save money and it's very, very important, but let's try to be more realistic in the budgeting part of that. The last part I want to share with you is that what are people actually paying for their surrogates, and where is this under budgeting, and why is it higher costs? Where are the costs potentially coming from? So one area that is very obvious, and probably where majority of the costs come from, not all of it because everyone else is increasing their fees, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but is on the compensation of the surrogate. So if you can see here, 47% is the biggest chunk of the range of where completed journeys where they paid their surrogates was between 40 and 50,000. So on average is 43,000, okay, which sounds pretty reasonable to me. And how much people are willing to pay in the future, this is great for the intended parents that are out there considering now, is that you are I would say a little bit more realistic in terms of market, almost spot on, 49,000, close to 50,000 for what you'd be willing to pay for a surrogate currently. Okay, so that difference is 13% increase. But I want to share a little bit about the real expectations from the surrogate side. So from the surrogate side, I'm going to move over again to our previous survey that we did with surrogates. These are the real about 200 to 300 real experienced surrogates sharing their compensation information, because that was what intended parents reported, which is very, very close. If you can see, is 43,000. They're willing to pay about 49,000, 50,000. That's very close to the numbers that the surrogates reported too, which makes me think that our statistics and our numbers are accurate. So I want to go into this a little bit detailed so you understand where is the future of where compensation and the cost increase are coming from. So in terms of how much surrogates received, in 2019, the average was around 46,000, 2019. And fast forward to 4 years later, when we just had our most recent survey for surrogates, our second one, the average was 50,000. So that increase over 4 years to me sounds pretty reasonable. And that average was about 11% increase over 4 years. I thought that was very, very acceptable in terms of matching inflation, matching the demand and supply. What I like to show now is, besides the base compensation, the other area that you'll see the increase in cost is going to be the total benefits and the variable costs that is attached to total compensation besides the base. So you have base cash compensation for their time in helping on the pregnancy, and you also have all of the total benefits and the variables that are including on insurance, legal services, travel, etc. And you can see the difference between 2019 and 2013 is that there's an increase of about 35% increase over that period of time. So the top line dollar value is not huge. It's about 3,000, a little bit more than 3,000, but a lot of things that were optional or maybe 50% have become a lot more mainstreamed in terms of the benefits that surrogates are expecting and that they are getting, such as maternity clothing, such as bonuses for transfer and MedStart. A lot of these things are becoming much more common. So that is also increasing the value of the benefits that you will have to pay that is variable. Okay, so both the compensation on base and the variable benefits are increasing. The next slide I'm going to show you is, where are we going to be, not in 23, but 23 and beyond. And that average, I have to say, is 61,000. So when we ask, what is your expectation for a future journey this year in 2023 or beyond, the answer was 61,000. Okay, that is a 22% increase in 1 year. Okay, so previously we said in 4 years, the increase was 11-12%, which was reasonable. This 1 year between 23 and beyond they're looking for a 22% on average increase to 61,000. I think the biggest bump, and I'm not saying everyone is asking for more and more and more, but you can see that in the gray area of 70,000 and above, 70 to 80,000, 80,000 and more has increased substantially. That's taking up 27%. 27% of people are asking for very, very high compensation. And this was not the case in previous years. Okay, so I just wanted to share on that, is that where is the increase in cost coming from? Not 100% on just the surrogate compensation and the benefits. That will be a large majority of it, but agency fees are increasing, legal fees are increasing, insurance fees are increasing. So everything is on the rise currently. I don't see that changing, but I think it's good to be aware to understand where the increases are happening and where you can be prepared to meet your expectation and also to budget correctly. So for this part of the webinar, I have concluded in terms of talking about the financial impacts. So I want to go back to reviewing that real quick. And number one is the financial burdens is number one on top of everyone's mind. Number two is, it's primarily self-funded. And that is, 87%, almost 90%, a little bit of personal loans. But I explained a little bit about where else you can find potential help to help you self-fund. We will send you some of the links of the loan companies that only specifically provide loans for people with for surrogacy. And maybe your corporate company can also help you on those benefits over time. The next is for budgeting. I think everyone needs to budget, between 150 and 200,000. That would be where I think is the most average portion. Previously, I would say 100 to 150,000, but I think that has slowly increased. And where are those increases happening? I just shared a little bit in very, very specific detail that in terms of the compensation with surrogates, there is a gap. There is a gap between what people are willing to pay, think they're going to pay 49, 50,000, and what surrogates are asking for on average 60,000, which is about a 21% gap in between the differences. So I do hope that those insights help you. I'm going to see if there are any questions in the Q&A or chat. If you have any, please post them up now. Otherwise, I will have the full survey that is going to be posted online. It is online already, but I'm going to post up a blog with all the information, some more links with the financial institutions that can provide loans. Otherwise, I will continue to have another webinar on October 18th. That'll be talking about infertility benefits and surrogacy. So I have some really good data, good information from intended parents about their thoughts about benefits and their employers' retention, their satisfaction. And it's really, really fascinating information about what are the trends in the future of surrogacy and how it's being accepted in the marketplace, as well as being recognized by the federal government, as well as your employers. So I want to just go to the last slide so you can see some information about our company, about myself. If you would like to email me, my email is jeff@surrogatefirst.com. You can schedule an appointment to have a one-on-one consult with us on our website, as well as download all of the latest surveys we have. And I look forward to seeing you at our next webinar on October 18th. If you have any questions, please let me know and reach out to me. All right. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll catch up and speak to you next time. Thank you.